Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining our brief recording that we're doing for you all around Coaching Cast for Supervision this afternoon. But first of all, some introductions. Hello, I'm Andrew Chandler, and I'm CEO here at Barefoot Coaching.
And I'm Kim Morgan, and I'm founder of Barefoot Coaching.
So that's us. So Kim, why are we cutting this video this afternoon? What's this about?
So this video is about the value of supervision. And in fact, in the Coach's Casebook, my first book, I was looking at it the other day and I realised that I'd called supervision a coach's greatest tool. And I hadn't even remembered that, but I think that's really nice. It is probably the greatest technique, resource we have available to us, and it can exist in many forms. We can join a group which is run by a trained supervisor and be supervised in a group context. We can have one-to-one supervision with one trained supervisor, and the supervisor will help us to reflect on our practice, will challenge us, will help us to see our own blind spots, our limiting beliefs and assumptions, and also provide us with development as coaches, sort of new tools and techniques and suggestions for us. So it's invaluable to have someone who has what we often call supervision. But there is another way in which we can access supervision, and that's by using Barefoot's supervision cards.
Nice. Well, we both, by coincidence, both have them in front of us.
By coincidence, we do.
And how do you see these being used? I mean, they're lovely.
Well, they're not to replace professional supervision, but they are to be an addition to, an enhancement to professional supervision. So I think you can use them on your own. If you've had a coaching session and you're feeling like, I don't know how well that went, you can just choose a card or pick a random card to help you reflect on that session. Or I think, as we're going to do now, working with another coach, we can ask one another questions from this pack of cards.
Nice. So as you say, that this is not about a replacement in kind of any way really for professional supervision, but it is about having a resource available to you whenever you want to use in a whole variety of different ways, which I guess promotes critical self-reflection, particularly around your practice.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. So shall we have a go?
Yeah, let's do it.
We've both got a pack of cards, and we're going to choose one for one another, are we?
We are. I'm happy to kind of just choose a card to start with if you want.
Yeah.
Here we go. I've got my cards. Okay, so the question that I would love to offer you is, what would you like to do better as a coach?
You can see the impact of that question immediately. I can feel it. My mind's racing. So I think because of where I am in my coaching practice, which is very long in the tooth and very established, I think I find it hard to practice what I preach, which is to stay with the not knowing. Because I'm at an age and a stage where I think I've sort of seen and heard most things. So the tendency to think I know is probably stronger now than it was when I started out. So I think I would like to be able to stay in a place of not knowing for longer with my clients.
Lovely. Thanks, Kim. I love that. Thank you. I felt the impact that had immediately. I was actually, as I was reading the question out, of course, I was immediately turning it on myself as well. So it's fascinating, isn't it? You're immediately captured by such a simple but powerful question.
Yeah. So out of interest, what did you think? What was your answer to that question?
Well, I knew immediately where I was going to, because I've been grappling with the old adage, meet the client where they are, and collusion, and feeling like I get a bit too entangled, usually through liking and wanting to build a kind of trusting relationship, but one where I probably get a bit too close to the client. So I kind of worry about that all of the time. So it doesn't, do I do it better as a coach? Would I like to do it better as a coach? I'm not sure. I think just staying aware of that potential entanglement,
Yeah.
that's a really healthy place for me to be. So yeah, I like that a lot.
Great answer. I really identify with that too. So let me just, I'm going to randomly pick a card because
Okay,
otherwise
let's do
there's
it.
some level of sort of bias in there about me knowing you. Interesting. What are some of the most meaningful and valuable pieces of feedback you've received from your clients? Which pieces of feedback have you discounted? And can you think why you may have done this?
Well, I think the most meaningful, funnily enough, actually, and I can answer that question not completely straight, because the most meaningful feedback I've had was meaningful because of who it came from, rather than necessarily the feedback itself. So the feedback was of a client feeling like the coaching experience that they'd had was useful to them, and that was great, and I was really pleased with that. But it was more meaningful because it was such a different client. They were so different to me, and I knew that. They were really super left hemispheric, super rational, super bright, quite intimidating. And initially when I got to meet them, they were the kind of, say, what's all this coaching about? And so to get any feedback around it being useful from them meant a lot, actually. So yeah, it was something about coaching and working with people who are different to me. And I think I've noticed over recent years how much I enjoy those differences far more than I think I ever used to. That's interesting, isn't it?
That's interesting.
Yeah. And to answer the second part, I've got the second part of the question. The second part of the question was, what feedback do you discount? Largely, I discount most nice feedback. So it's like, oh, that was great. It was really warm, blah, blah, blah. I think that's great. But actually, I kind of just go over that really quickly. I'm not sure what that's about, really. But I kind of just I thank people, but I move on very quickly from that.
Have you got a clue what that's about, Andy?
Not really sure. I mean, maybe just an expectation that I hold that isn't that how it's meant to be. And therefore, that's just kind of normal. So I probably don't recognize and actually thank those clients quite in the way that I could do. I suspect I'm very polite superficially, but underneath I'm thinking, yeah, let's kind of move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something about the lack of specificity because you use the words, oh yeah, that was very nice, that was very good. Is it anything to do with that?
It might be. Yeah, it might be. I don't know. It's interesting though. I've never thought about the feedback that I've discounted, if I'm honest with you. I've never thought about what's the stuff that I tend not to put too much weight behind. Well, I do now, but I didn't up until that question. I love that question.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, isn't it? And also by discounting it, in some ways, you're sort of discounting the impact that it's had on them
Yes,
and their compliments in a way.
I think that's very true. You're not kind of owning it.
Yeah,
Actually, you're right. You're kind of in a way devaluing the feedback in some way, I think.
yeah. Thank you. That was a
Wow.
fascinating answer. I want to just challenge one thing. The client you mentioned who's very different from you, very left hemispheric, very analytical and very bright. I don't accept the very bright being very different from you. Just say.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a fair point.
Good, and I'm glad you didn't discount that bit of feedback.
No, superficially, underneath I've discounted it. No, thank you, Kim. No, I get that. That's lovely. They're
Okay.
great questions, aren't they? I mean, here's a pack of 50 questions, I think.
Yeah, 50 questions. And honestly, we don't use them enough. just using them here today in this demo video, I felt the sort of physical impact of that question land. And of course, it doesn't stop there, does it? I'm continuing to reflect a bit on my answers, reflect on your answers too, reflect on both our questions. And I'm almost thinking it should be a practice after every coaching session that I do, that I pick up a card.
I could see that working really well. And I think in a way, I was thinking about some of the other cards that we've got, particularly, for example, team coaching, but there's something around, I remember using a recent example with the team where all of the cards were turned face up, for them to select a card which had a question on it that felt particularly relevant to the team. And now I'm thinking about that from a supervision point of view, actually, going through each of those, even after a session, going through all of the cards and saying, actually, what are the questions that are really calling to me after having that session?
Yeah.
Ones that feel most relevant, that I really like, have caught my eye, and which ones am I avoiding?
That works really well. I've done that a lot. Pick the card with the question that you don't want to answer. That works really well too.
I love it.
Just such a lot you can do with them. We've been working with coaches for so many years, and we know that life and time gets in the way, and sometimes we don't make that time for supervision that we know is essential to our practice. But using these cards is a really convenient, quick and easy way to give you time and space to reflect on your practice alone or with peer coaches.
It's lovely, Kim. And I think for anybody that's listening in or watching, you can get hold of the cards. Just go straight to the Barefoot store, actually. So you'll find them under coaching cards in the Barefoot store, and you can buy them online, and we can zip them in the post to you quicker than you can say supervision. So hopefully you'll enjoy them and have a lot of use out of them in particular.